Well, looks like he bent here and fell back. I should have supported that top some way. I almost did. Yeah. Those are stuck worse than I wanted. Whoops, missed a spot. Or maybe, no, I think I missed that spot. Well, it's not a total loss yet. Definitely have two kiln, oh, maybe just one stuck awfully hard. That one stuck in a lot of glaze, which may or may not clean off. I really like the way the palladium worked with the licorice. He's definitely more like a running man now. I have to see if I can get this off without completely ruining things. Yeah, not too bad. Need some sanding with something to smooth that up. Got a cheap set of diamond burrs that I bought off eBay. I think that might work out pretty good for something to smooth that. They are Dremel tools, so I'll put them in a Dremel. See what we got. And it definitely changed the angle of the legs. But I might just be able to make him work. It's going to be sitting up above the tree unless I change the base where he can sit down into that bottom of that V. Well, I'm going to change the base anyway. Maybe I can alter it and make it stepped. I think I can make that work. I'm going to use a cheap Chinese hole saw, part of a set that I'd bought a while back. Wet it down with some water here, and I'm going to put a hole right through the base so that I can feed the wire up through this. At least I'm going to try. Bouncing all around without a center. Try to hold it with a very light pressure until it gets a spot made. Keep it cool to keep the diamond dust from falling off. Bit got a little loose there. If you'd like to see how I made the base, click on the link here. All right, I picked up a cord with a rotary dimmer on Amazon. This is a cloth covered cord. I'm gonna have to tape the end of it to keep that cloth from trying to crunch down. Just going to use a little bit of electrical tape here. Try to keep it as small as possible. Tape up the end of that wire. You have to put a string through the branch to act as a pull string, make it a little easier to get this in. Hook that around one of the wires. Here again, I want to try to keep that as small as possible because the hole is only 1/4 inch. I'm just using a pair of pliers to make it a little more rounded. Let's see. Tape it a little bit further down. It's catching that cloth. I think I'll chase that hole with the drill bit first. There we go. Okay, next step is going to be to fish this wire through the man. And I have a pull string in him and one connected here. I'll just tie these two strings together and see if I can get it up through there. I've got more than enough wire pulled through the base at this point. I can pull it back once I get some out of the head. I'll have to bring it out of the head and leave it long for now. I don't have the lamp socket. That didn't quite turn out the size I was hoping it was going to, and I'm having to wait for another order to come in. Got a new lamp socket ordered. So I'm just gonna go a square knot here and tie these two things together. Hopefully that'll be strong enough. A steady pressure on the string, and really I'm trying to push the wire through more than pull it. Just use the string if it gets caught. That should be plenty. Alright, I'm going to pull the excess back through the base or the trunk here. Get this propped up. Just like that. Now, just want to pull that extra loop out of the base. Like so. And now, I want to get him situated and figure out how I'm going to attach him. I'm gonna use a 24 gauge beading wire, and I'm going to wire them on in 3 different spots. I just drilled the holes for that. I can go around the leg here. It'll be fairly hidden. I'll just blacken the wire with some a marker, black Sharpie, and then I'll go through the waist and I'll go through the hand and around the branch in those 3 spots, and I think that'll be secure. Spin those wires together with a cordless drill there, made a single twisted wire out of it, which makes it stronger and easier to get through this hole. I don't have it real tight because I need to be able to spin it around. And I think what I'll do is epoxy it into this hole. I may drive a fastener in through this side to pin it, and then fill that with a little bit of black epoxy. The finish now would be just about right. I think I'll just cut a piece of it off and just drive the tip in. I just have a very small tip of the nail here. And that's pin that wire in. Cut this extra off. And push that back into the hole, and I'll fill that with a bit of black epoxy, which will look like a lot of these other little knot holes in the wood. I think I may add some epoxy on the end of him to help secure it. Not sure how well the epoxy will stick to the ceramic, but let me mix up a little 5-minute epoxy. All right, he's glued pretty good to that at this moment, so the epoxy is set. I'll go ahead and tighten these wires up. I believe I'm going to go maybe do a double around this one. Okay, there's all my wires in. Next up, I'm going to mix up some epoxy and fill those wire holes in the wood. Pretty small amount here. About half a dime size of each. The hardener and the resin. And then I'm going to color it black. I have a model paint here, just a flat black model paint, and I'm just going to really put a drop or two in it. Should be plenty to get a black color on it. So I have a couple of spots here that I had missed with the glaze. Here's one. I've colored that one with a Sharpie marker. I'm thinking I might try a little of this black model paint here, as well as this little spot here above the hole and maybe the edges of the hole. I don't really have a use for this hole at this point. I may try to find something to plug that with and then paint that. So originally I wanted to use a full-size lamp socket and this small bulb for the head, but unfortunately I didn't have this when I did this piece, and I've got it just barely that size all the way out at the end, tapered back inside. So there's no way that's going to fit. I don't want it hanging out that far. My options are to go with a smaller lamp base. This is a standard size lamp base. There's an intermediate size and a candelabra base. I've ordered the intermediate and the candelabra base. I have to wait for those to show up. Found some other light bulbs that are similar to this that might work with those. So at this point, that's pretty much all it needs. Here's what I have for light bulb options. The full-size base, too big. This is a intermediate base size. Whoops. That is an intermediate base size, which may fit in, but I'll have to remove the piece of metal on the back of those. And this is the candelabra size base, which would definitely fit, but I'm not so sure I like that bulb option, and I didn't see another one that fit the bill. So let me see how these look up in the light. So the intermediate bulb and base should set about that deep, which is still going to have quite a bit of the bulb sticking out. Really would have liked it to have been back further, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get it that far in. The hole's just not that big in the base of this. In fact, it may be too small even for the candelabra bulb to fit in it. I'll have to remove the riveted metal support on the bottom, and I intend to just epoxy this or use some kind of a sealant to hold the lamp base in. I don't intend for it to come out again, so not sure. Leaning toward the smaller bulb, I think. Unfortunately, this rivet is also what holds this lamp base halves together, so I'll have to replace the rivet. I push the rivet back into the fixture, and there should be just enough here, Not sure if you can see that or not, just a little bit sticking out. I should be able to make that bend back over and hold this rivet in place. Not the ideal punch to do it with though. A little easier said than done. There we go. That flared the end of that out, tightened it up, ready to go. Go ahead and cut the leads on this short. I have more room in the head than anywhere else to make this connection. I'm going to try to stagger them just a little bit so there may be a little bit more room inside. If you've never stripped wire before, these wire strippers have a number on it, and if you look here on the wire itself, it says 18 gauge, so you want to use the 18 gauge stripper. And I'm actually going to solder this connection to try to make it a more permanent and as small a connection as I can. Now as for the lamp cord, it's also an 18 gauge. I've got a little bit of exposed. This is a cloth cover and it just slides back. So I'm going to leave this long. Probably trim off just the end of that. Better cutter for that. Something like that. I'll twist this wire just to keep it from being frayed. And when I need to stagger this a little bit. So let me shorten up one of them here. Okay. That should be just about right now. Let me see. These wires are still somewhat in the way. I'm sure I'll be able to get more of the lamp base in if it's the candelabra base. Looks like I have about a 3/8 of an inch back from the edge there. Unfortunately, that bulb is quite a bit longer. Let's see how far back from the edge the intermediate base is. It's about the same. 3/4 inch on the intermediate as well, or 3/8 of an inch rather. Yep, right at it. This is a little piece of heat shrink that I'll put over that joint and shrink it into place once it's done. And just slide back the cloth and slide the heat shrink up far enough where it's not going to shrink in place while I do the soldering. And I'm going to try to make a little bit of a mechanical joint here with the wire. So I've flared them out a little bit and basically going to try to twist them all together as one. Something like that. Trying to make sure I have no wires sticking up. Be adding a little bit of a flux to the wire. and then using an electrical solder to solder it in place. I'm just going to add an old towel here to catch any solder drips, keep them from getting down on the structure here or the base. Okay, I'm just going to work the wire back into the head, pull here from the base gently, and push it in from here. It does have a bit of a 90 that it goes around inside the headpiece. Slide that back in, and before I get it seated all the way home, I'm going to want to put some epoxy on that, so that because it won't be able to be pulled back out very easily without having hold of that wire. I'm going to stop about right there, get some epoxy mixed up, put it on the base, and then shove it down in. Meanwhile, down at the base, I'm just going to work this extra slack back out. Tuck that in the little recess that I cut out for the wire to make that transition, and I'm going to go ahead and get the base glued on. I believe I'm going to use maybe a contact adhesive on this. This is just Wellwood brand contact cement. I don't have a disposable brush at the moment, so I'm just going to use a putty knife to smear a coat on both pieces. Try to spread it evenly. Okay, I'm going to let that dry until it's not tacky anymore, and then apply that. So this part of the light bulb is going to be exposed, and I'm not thrilled with that look. So I taped the bulb up. I think I'm going to paint this to just help block it out. If I had to do anything different on this build, I definitely would have made this bigger to be able to cover this part of the bulb, so only the very front of the bulb would be sticking out. Just got some little felt dots here. Help this slide around.